Good evening, everybody in my part of the world on the South African continent or African continent. Good morning to Peter, especially in New Zealand, and the team in New Zealand. And good afternoon if you're in a part of the world where it is afternoon at the moment or still daylight. I'm sitting in the dark. I've got a light here because we're in the middle of load shedding. Lights should come back on shortly. So just to introduce myself and get a couple of formalities out of the way, we've got about 230 odd people listening to me tonight. Half of you, I think, have listened to me before, and some of you even clients, and some of you are potential clients. So welcome to tonight's webinar. It's going to last about 45 minutes to 50 minutes. I'm going to be jumping into it quite quickly. Just to introduce myself, my name is Andrew Kerr. I am a licensed immigration advisor for both Australia and New Zealand, and I'm also the owner of Network Migration Services. Just a bit of history on Network Migration. It was launched in 1989. It was part of a franchise group of companies way back then. In fact, it was launched earlier than that. It came into South Africa in 1989. And I joined the company as a consultant in 1993. And in those days, I was specifically just talking about New Zealand. And then in 1996, I had an opportunity to buy the franchise, so I did. And in the last 30 odd years, because I've been in the business for 30 odd years, last month it was 30 years. We've immigrated over 15,000 families to Australia and New Zealand, pretty much half at the moment. And we are very proud to say we have a 99.9 success rate. I mean, failure is really not an option. And it's extremely rare that we would fail, and there would have to be a very specific reason for failure, maybe a health issue, major health problem, or criminal record we couldn't deal with, etc., which we can talk about privately. Just on the first slide here, I'd just like to say a quick thank you to some of our service providers. I won't go into them in detail. We don't have a lot of time tonight. It is late. Some of you will be starting load shedding now. In Africa, those of you in Africa know exactly what I'm talking about. Those of you in the rest of the world, it just means basically that our big power giant switches the lights off for anywhere between 2 to 10 hours a day and rotates it throughout the country. Really, really affecting the economy. It's I say only been happening since 2008. I mean, gosh, it's been a long time, 15 odd years since we've been load shedding. And frankly, it's not getting worse. It is getting better. And it's really hurting the South African economy and, in fact, the African economy. So you'll notice my MARA registration number there on the first slide. That's for Australia, my IAA registration number for New Zealand. And just a point on that, if you're going to take advice on immigration, please make sure that your initial contact is with a licensed immigration advisor. There are companies around that have consultants that aren't licensed that give immigration advice. For onshore and offshore for New Zealand, that is completely illegal. You're not allowed to do that. So the first thing you should do when you're sitting down with an advisor is just ask them openly, are you licensed? Are you able to legally talk to me about New Zealand? If it's Australia and you're based on shore, you have to be licensed. But if you're based offshore, you actually don't have to be licensed. I am, but you don't have to be. So just be a little bit aware that there are one or two Australian organisations out there that allow non-licensed advisors to give consults. And if you actually sign up with an advisor or non-licensed advisor, you're not covered in any way. You're not protected by these parental authorities, if you like. MARA stands for the Migration Agents Registration Association. That's Australia. And IAA stands for the Immigration Advisor Authority for New Zealand. And these are regulating bodies that we have to license with every year. It's a very regulated industry. And frankly, that's to protect you as the consumer, that you're not paying, money to people and jobs aren't getting done, and you don't have, someone to sort of talk to about why didn't this done once I paid for that. And these, of course, authorities monitor us as licensed advisors. I just wanted to say thank you to Ruan for organising tonight. As always, Ruan Lowe is our marketing manager in our Joburg office here. Thank you to Peter Lemmer for joining us tonight. As always, it's early in the morning in New Zealand at 6 o'clock, so thank you for getting up so early, Peter. I'm not sure Desiree's there. I haven't seen, or Liz. If so, I would say, hi to them. They are clearly team members. Des is our operations manager. She's actually immigrated about 8 weeks ago to New Zealand. been with us a few years now, and due to her outstanding work, we've kept her as operations manager, even though she's in New Zealand. It actually helps us. Liz is head of our HR department. She's based in the Joburg office here. I'm not sure if they're actually online tonight because Liz is load shedding, and Des has children to sort of prepare and get up and go to school later on in the morning, or at least crash. Just a very quick thank you to some of the service providers down at the bottom there. We are quite literally the one-stop shop. We have three basic divisions. One is our relocation division, which handles things like assisting you with opening bank accounts, shifting funds, meeting at airports, accommodation, arranging furniture, arranging pet removals, pretty much anything to do with the physical aspects of relocation itself. And then we've got Liz, our head of our HR department, working very closely with Peter on the job search training process, and that's Rose is involved in that, Liz is involved in that. In fact, we're all involved in it, but it's Peter's baby. Peter is South African. He has been in New Zealand 6.5 odd years now, and he will be talking to you in about 10 minutes or so just regarding the New Zealand job search training process that he has developed over the last few years. And then, of course, we've got the migration division, which clearly is run by me in the sense that I'm the licensed advisor. Myself and my colleagues, my file managers, we put all the caseworks together and we submit them to the relevant authorities for any type of visa that you're applying for. I'm a member of the New Zealand Association for Migration and Investment, and also the Migration Institute of Australia. So let's just quickly go through this. Where are we? Right. Okay. So let's just get on to first slide here. Right. So about us, we've talked about us around many, many years. Nowadays, by the way, clearly technology in the last 5 to 10 years has become outstanding. So frankly, we've got clients all over the world, from China to the Ukraine to Ireland to the United States to the Philippines to Thailand, etc. Nowadays, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, we can deal with you. We're up to 250 odd people now, so welcome to those who are coming on a bit late. Some of you might just be logging on because of load shedding or logging off. Just a point on this webinar, it is recorded. Everybody that is booked for tonight's webinar, tomorrow morning, Ruan, our marketing manager, will send you all the full recording of this webinar. So don't panic too much if you're load shedding or something's gone wrong, etc. Technology is what it is. I'm going to go through the Australian visa and points just now in a second. Then I'm going to do New Zealand. And I'm not going to too much discuss our relocation partners. That'll come in a private consult, and of course we can do some question and answers. If you have questions, please just put them into the chat room there. You can see that I'm looking at two screens, so forgive me not looking straight at you. Just put them into the chat room, and I'll go through them at the end. Or if Liz and or Desiree are on and they're non-related to immigration questions, they might just refer you to me, or they'll give you just a general answer at the moment. Now, all our assessments are completely free. We do not charge for the information we are going to give you. So please use it. Those of you who know me and those of you who are just meeting me, I think you can possibly, I'm a Kiwi, I'm a New Zealander, born and bred in Auckland, lived in New Zealand for 20 years, moved to Australia for 10 years, and I've been in South Africa for 30 years now. So there's a bit of a guess of my age. So I've lived in all three countries. I think I understand the cultures of all three countries extremely well. And I'm, assisting, or we are assisting people with life-changing moves, of course, in moving to these countries. So it's very, very important that you get the facts, and the facts need to be accurate and based on you, not based on, speculation or something you're reading on Facebook or something else that, somebody's told me that I can do this, et cetera, et cetera. As one of the questions was in the chat room earlier, can I go over and work basically as a domestic and then get a job, professional job? No, you can't, because you'll never get in as a domestic worker because you're not on their skills list. You just won't get in. So you need to be very, very, very realistic about this process. Okay. And I'm gonna be very blunt tonight. I'm going to be talking about basic costings, etc., because this is not a cheap exercise, especially if you're coming from a rand-based economy, which clearly South Africa is. So South Africa, not Zim or other countries in here, but you've got to be able to afford to do this. And you might, I mean, I do get emails sometimes saying, well, I want sponsorship. We are not in the we do not find sponsors for you. There are some companies that may offer you some sort of relocation assistance, but frankly, that is extremely rare. So don't count on it. And quite bottom line is, if you can't afford this process, don't start it. Okay. And you cannot rely on finding a sponsor. Okay. So anyway, so what I need you to do just before I go on to the next and keep moving through is I need to understand who you are. And the easiest way for me to do that is you just to send me the CV that you have. Most modern CVs don't have your name, your ages on them. I don't need you to change your CVs. In fact, because the CV is only coming to me, I really don't care what it looks like. I basically need to know your age, qualifications, if you've got them, work experience, of course, from pretty much the day you started working until now, and the structures of your family. So if your CV just sort of states what you do and et cetera, all very well and good. But in the email you're going to send me, attaching your CV, please, just say, listen, Andrew, I am a married individual. I'm 42, my wife's 38, and we have 3 young children, 5, 6, and 7 years old, or whatever they may be. So just give me the structures of your family with your CVs. And if you're in a relationship, please send me both your CVs, because especially for New Zealand, you can get bonus points, for spousal working, and if spouse has qualifications, et cetera, similar for Australia, but not quite the same, which you'll find out now when I go through it. But send me your basic information. And then what I would strongly suggest, what I will then do is I'll send you back your processes, the procedures, the costs, the timeframes, everything. That is completely free. And then what I send you, sometimes it's quite simplistic, but then again, I've been doing this for 30 years, so I know what I'm doing. But you might not understand what I'm sending you as much as we do, and clearly you won't. So don't hesitate to make an appointment via Skype, Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, or face-to-face in my offices here in Johannesburg, where I can sit with you either electronically or face-to-face and run you through those processes. And all those consultations, be it electronically or face-to-face, again, are completely free. So whether you use network migration or not is not quite the point. Get the facts first by getting the pathways from me, getting the processes explained to you in a one-on-one. Don't be shy to make an appointment to see me. I consult Mondays to Saturdays. Not all day Saturday to about lunchtime, but Mondays to Fridays, and of course Saturdays from sort of 8:30 till about 12:30. So, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, I will make a plan. We'll make a plan around time zones and time frames. Today, I can't remember who I was Skyping with somebody in the UAE and somebody somewhere else. I think it was the Philippines this morning. Anyway, so the point is, give me the information. I will replace the information you give me with the facts and the figures about how to do this process. And then you can either use us, go and do it yourself, or use somebody else. Okay? So that's my little spiel to get started. That's me a couple of years ago, of course. There's my licensing, licensed by New Zealand Immigration, of course, in Australia. Let's talk about Australia. It's going to be quite quick for Australia. It's only going to literally take 5 to 8 minutes, because Australia is very much, it's a huge country. It's, one of the biggest in the world landmass-wise, and extremely diverse cities. Sydney is very different than Melbourne, for example, which is very different than Adelaide and Perth, and very different than Brisbane. So extremely diverse cities. Australia has really ramped up their migration processes since COVID, or since, of course, lockdown. Pre-COVID, they weren't selecting many people at all. Post-lockdowns, they're starting to select a lot more. But be careful, and I'll explain why in just a second. There is not a visa category for either Australia or New Zealand that we will not help you with. It doesn't matter. But tonight, we're going to concentrate on skilled migrant. We're going to concentrate on those of you with that are going over that meet the requirements for a skilled migrant visa. fine. So hi, Liz. I did love, guys. I didn't see whether Des was there. I just wanted to say hi to Des if she is. Maybe she's not. She might not be able to join us this morning. But anyway, hi, Liz. Liz, I've already introduced you before you were there. Liz, head of our HR department, and also becoming a licensed advisor as well in the next couple of years. So tonight, I'm not going to talk about student visas. I'm not going to talk about family. I'm not going to talk about business. Clearly, I'll talk about work visas and skilled migrant. But there is not a visa we cannot do, be it parent or you're going over to start a business or whatever you want to do. So please contact me. If it's something different like a business visa you're looking at, just drop me an email and I'll give you a call and we can do a quick Zoom or a Skype or a chat over the phone, and I can explain the basic details and then send you those processes. Now, when it comes to skilled migrant for Australia, currently you still need to be reaching at least 65 points to be selected. Please take a screenshot of this particular page. And it's going to be there for about a minute or two, and then I'm going to put it on another page. Just a couple of points we need to point out for Australia. You'll notice at the top left here, your age points, extremely critical. If you are 45 years already or over, you will not be able to lodge a skilled migrant application to Australia under any circumstances. You're over the age limit. I know that sounds a little insane when you consider New Zealand is 56, but we don't make the rules. Okay, this is the Department of Home Affairs and the Australian federal government, of course, in Australia making their rules. So there are your age points. You'll notice your points on your right-hand side for qualifications. And in 99% of the time, you will need a qualification. And I mean that, okay? Even if I'll explain the procedure in a second, but pretty much 99% of the time, you're going to need to have a formal qualification. And I'm not talking about a certificate. I'm talking about genuine, normal 3-year diplomas, mostly, trades, of course, and degrees or bachelor's degrees, honours or doctorates, of course. There's the points for your work experience on the bottom right, and your work experience must be related to the qualification you're claiming. It has to be. You cannot claim unrelated work experience. And there it is, 3 out of 5, 5 out of 8, or 8 out of 10. Points for English language, you'll see here 0, 10, or 20, depending on whether you get competent, proficient, or superior. And you might be sitting in Ireland at the moment or Canada laughing at me thinking, well, I don't need to sit the English test. You're quite right. There are exempt countries from sitting English, but be extremely careful, because by not sitting the English test, if you come from an exempt country, fine, but you don't get the points, and you still might need the points. So even if you are British, you might still need to sit the English test and get superior, because you need those 20 points in order to get 65 or above. You'll get extra points if your spouse has a qualification, and of course, also if your spouse is doing English. And the spouse's qualification must be on the same skills list as you. Take a screenshot of this next page, please. Now, while you're taking a shot of this page, let me just give you a basic understanding of how Australia works, which is the complete opposite to New Zealand, okay? Australia will take you, and if you're in healthcare and education, your process will probably take 3 to 4 months. Why? Because recently, Australian federal government or parliament announced or instructed immigration in Australia, Department of Home Affairs, that any teachers or healthcare workers they get applying to fast track their applications. But you've got to get into the system. And getting into the system means that you'll have to sit the English test. This is for all of you, by the way. You'll have to sit the English test. So normally will your spouse, if you've got one. And clearly you need to book that, etc., and wait for the results. And you will need your qualifications assessed. Now, there are over 30 assessing authorities in Australia, and each of them charge a fee of anywhere between $500 to $4,000, depending on which assessing. And I'm talking Australian dollars. I'm not talking US dollars, okay? But that's still high as far as the rand's concerned, as we all know. So the assessing authorities, what happens is they want to cite your qualifications. Where did you get them? What was your course contents? What was your pass marks, etc., etc. We'll do the skills assessments for you. It's part of our service. And if you need a job that requires registration, like teaching, for example, we'll do the registration for you. It's part of our service. Most of my other agencies out there, one or two, I won't name names. Everybody's got their own business models, but we are one of the few agencies that literally does it all. So if you need registration, we'll do it, etc., etc. We will deal with the relevant authorities to get you positively assessed. And clearly, we're not going to send the documents off if it's not going to come back positive. So the initial assessment is going to be all around about how this works. So in the first week of coming on board with us, you'll be receiving what we call a starter pack, which is quite simply a documentation checklist. What do we want from you in order to make this process successful? Okay. And then once we've got the documents back from you for the skills assessment, we'll clearly send it off to Australia to do it. And during that period of time, because the assessing authorities take anywhere from 4 weeks to 5 months, depending on which assessing authority you're using. And during that period of time, of course, we would strongly suggest that you sit the English test, both yourself and your spouse. 2 or 3 of the assessing authorities require your English results up front, like teachers, engineers, accountants, for example. You are required to set your English results, English test up front and send the results with your qualifications. So be careful. Once we've done the English test and the skills assessment, let's round it off to around about 3 or 4 months for that process to be finished. We then upload your application into the Skills Select site. Okay. Now, there are 3 specific skilled migrant visas you can apply for. 2 of them are showing on this page, the 491 and the 190, and the main one is called the Subclass 189. A Subclass 189 is a permanent visa issued to you, and it is, once it's issued, you have 5 years to take it up. But if you're not going to enter Australia within the first year of your visa grant, if you're not going to immigrate to Australia within the first year of your visa grant, you must validate the visa within the first 12 months by entering the country. Okay, but you've got on the 190 and the 189, you have a 5-year window, but they will backdate that window to the day you do your medicals. So don't do the medicals until we tell you to. And then on the Subclass 491, it's a brand new visa that came out in 2019 in November, just before COVID. And it's a 5-year visa issued to you. You've got a year to take it up. You enter Australia, and for 3 consecutive years, the main applicant must earn a minimum salary of $53,900. That's easy. The salary won't be a problem. But for those 3 years, you and your spouse and family cannot live or work in Sydney, Brisbane, or Melbourne. Live anywhere else in the country except those 3 cities. So be careful here. Okay. Now, the other thing is this number 65 is screaming at you. I'm just about to shift on to New Zealand here. So we've talked about 3 or 4 months to prepare everything. We load the application into the Skills Select site, and then we wait to be selected. Now, Australian federal government selects every quarter, every 12 weeks. Their last selection was last Wednesday night, and they will publish those selections in the last couple of weeks. In the next couple of weeks. They selected in January, the last Wednesday of January, and they published selections in February. And for example, they selected 35,000 offshore applications in January, just to give you an idea. They're looking for usually around about 150, 160,000 successful applications during their tax year, which is, of course, from the 1st of July until June 30th. So they reboot everything on the 1st of July. And the next selection is actually, federal selection is at the end of July, then end of October, and so on. October and so on. But on a 190, that is a state selection. That means that you can, sorry, I'm just wondering why the lights aren't on. You can apply to a state to be selected. Now, there are 8 states and territories in Australia, and each of them has their own selection criteria. One state that you can't select is New South Wales. That's a picture of Sydney on the wall behind me. You can't see it, but anyway, that's Sydney. You can't select New South Wales. You can load an application and wait for them to select you, but you can't select them. Whereas other states, mostly you can select that state. When you select the state, they charge you a small fee to process you. And then because you've been state selected, the system will select you automatically. And then once the system selects you and asks you to apply for residency, you're going to pay quite a substantial fee. It's like $4,500 for the main applicant, $2,500 for the spouse, and $1,000 for each child. I mean, just add that up. If you're a family of four and you live in South Africa, that is 100,000 Rand. Okay, so think about this, guys. Okay, you need to be able to afford it once you're selected. And then once you're selected, you pay them that money, and then they process your application normally in around 3 to 6 months. Okay. But just before I go on to New Zealand, I just want you to be a little bit careful of the number 65. Why? Because just because you're on 65 doesn't mean you'll be selected on 65. Because federal government or state, they have minimum requirements. Giving you an example, a motor mechanic in January was selected on 65. An accountant had to reach 85. Makes you think, doesn't it? Now, to reach 85, you better be extremely young, have a lot of experience, and probably have a qualified spouse. So be careful here. So what happens is if you're not selected, you can stay in the pooling system for up to 2 years. It doesn't cost to go into the pool. So we as an agency, we strongly suggest that we load multiple applications. You might qualify for all three, 189, 190, and a 491 potentially. So we would then load them separately, each application. Okay, and of course it gives you multiple chances at being selected. All righty, we're up to 270 now, so welcome to those of you who've come late, and sorry for those of you who are load shedding and gone off. But so once you send me your information for Australia, I will send it back to you. And then I strongly suggest you arrange a consultation with me, because then I can sort of show you how the selection process works. We don't know why Australia's, a software engineer, for example, also needed to have 85 points, whereas a management consultant was selected on 65, for example. So that just gives you an idea that just because you're on 65 points doesn't automatically mean you're going to be selected. So be careful, okay? Rightio. So Australia, from the start to finish, you're looking at 9 to 12 to 15 months, depending on, whether you're on the main skills list or whether you're, how fast they're selecting, etc. So somewhere between 9 to 15 months from the day you say go for Australia. Now, I'm just about to invite Peter in to have a bit of a chat about New Zealand. But before I do, I just wanted to talk about something. Okay, first of all, let's just get rid of these first slides. New Zealand, well, my home, beautiful place, clearly one of the prettiest countries in the world. Again, there's not a visa that we don't do. They've got their main general elections this year in October. I'll be very interested to see what happens there. I know what I think is going to happen, but I won't comment on that. Now, you'll notice here, visitor's visa for job search. Unlike Australia, New Zealand is based on the main applicant receiving a job offer. It's as simple and as difficult as that in the same sentence. Now, I'm seeing a lot of people saying, and please don't say, what are the opportunities for a software engineer? What are the opportunities for a truck driver? What are the opportunities for a nurse? In both countries, the unemployment is around 3%. 3%. There are stacks of opportunities across the board for everybody, but you just got to get there, okay? In some instances, you might not need to travel to New Zealand to find a job. You might get a job offer from offshore, but nobody can guarantee that. So if you're sitting with somebody that says to you, oh, no problem, I guarantee you're going to get a job before you travel or whatever, be extremely careful. Yes, of course, there are certain occupations that are easier than others. Diesel mechanics, heavy duty mechanics, environmental consultants at the moment, for example. What else? Early childhood educators. We had a maths teacher the other day. He got 5 job offers, etc., etc. I've got a client in New Zealand at the moment I'm Skyping with tomorrow morning. She has 3 offers, 3 job offers. She's in the financial sector. So she's already got 3. She's not sure which one to take. So, that's up to her. I'll try and give her some advice tomorrow morning. But the issue is very much based on the job offer. Without the job offer, you are going nowhere. So how do you get the job? Clearly, our job search, well, not clearly, our job search training is the best in the world. Peter's been developing it for the last 7 years. So I need you to listen to this, please, and then I'm going to introduce Peter to you.
Where no New Zealanders are available for a job, employers can hire a skilled migrant worker using the Accredited Employer Work Visa, or AEWV. Before inviting a migrant to apply for an AEWV, employers must become accredited with Immigration New Zealand and complete a job check for the role they want to fill. This means migrant workers can have more confidence about the role they're coming to New Zealand for. To gain accreditation, an employer must be a genuine business in a good financial position and have no recent history of breaching employment or immigration law or business standards. The job check confirms that the job pays the market rate, and the terms and conditions of the contract comply with New Zealand's employment standards. Before applying for a job check, employers need to advertise most roles to prove there are no New Zealand citizens or residents available for the job. After an employer's job check has been approved, you will be sent an email containing a link and a job check token. This means you can access the online portal and apply for your visa. The application process is all done online, where you will fill in your details and upload supporting documentation. Immigration New Zealand will check if you meet the requirements for the AEWV and that you have the skills and experience the employer is seeking. Once you are employed, your employer must provide you with information to help you settle into life in New Zealand and give you time to complete Employment New Zealand's online modules on employment rights while you are at work. The AEWV is designed to ensure only good employers can hire migrant workers and helps prevent migrant exploitation. More information about the AEWV is on our website.
Morning, Peter.
Hey, morning, Andrew. How's it going in South Africa?
Yeah, dark.
I see we have electricity here.
I know. Well, if I switch this off, it'll be it'll show you. I mean, I'm literally by my screen, so I'm dark. It's supposed to have come back, but who knows with Eskom at the moment? Who knows? But anyway, yeah. So welcome, Peter. I just really clearly wanted to explain what your process is, what you've developed in the past 5 or 6 years over there, and how it works. And then I just wanted you to stay on for just a couple of extra minutes once you've done that, because I just want to sort of delve into this. You know, what do I need to do to get the job? And your opinion on that will be valuable. So I'll leave the floor to you for the next 5 minutes, just talking about that, your job training. Please, guys, by the way, take a screenshot of what's in front of you. That was actually put together by INZ. And so was clearly the conversation that the young woman was having earlier. So it's all about how to process it. So take a screenshot, and then, of course, when you meet with me, I can run you through it. Peter, floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Hi, everybody. The New Zealand team, consisting of myself and my assistant, and, of course, Rose and the team in South Africa, help you with all the things related to relocation and the job search training side of things. So we've been focusing on the job search training, as Andrew said, for the last 6 years, and refined it to quite an art. Job search is sort of the most important part of the whole journey, because without your job offer in New Zealand, you cannot apply for a work visa. So it's sort of step one, priority one in the whole process. And our job search training is, if you sign up with Andrew, it's included in the visa fees, and it's a free service we offer our clients. But if you want to test the waters, let's say, and just do the job search training to see that you are, the market is interested in you, there's a good probability of you finding work, and you want to then go on with the visa fees, we subtract the amount you paid us for the job search training from Andrew's visa fees. So there is a sort of a two-step process if you want to follow that route first. Just email me then on peter@networkmigration.com, and
I just put it on the chat room for you, mate.
Thanks. And I will then put on, I'll send you then a quote just for doing the job search training. And you'll still get the job search training and relocation advice with us, and right through the process. We also have, we send you a lot of information, checklist before you leave, what to do. We send you a lot of information on, we have pre-departure meetings where we sit with you for half an hour, going through everything related to, how to find a home, a rental home, how to get your car license converted, how to open bank accounts, all those kind of things. And when you land, we meet you as well, face to face, hopefully, if possible, for a coffee to help you settle in easier. We even send you videos on stress of immigration and how to deal with the stress of immigration. So we've got a very comprehensive service, which I don't know any other immigration advisor does it to the extent that we do. Now, in the job search side of things, which is the most important part of this whole process, we go through what we call the 4 pillars of networking and marketing yourself in New Zealand. The first pillar consists of search engine optimizing your LinkedIn profile. We then go through to the second pillar, which teaches you on how to connect with people in New Zealand, 5 different levels. People mainly just connect on 1 or 2 levels, the HR manager and the hiring manager. But there's 3 other levels that you're missing, which are critical to the whole process and to actually help you in the whole process. Within the pillar 3 is teaching you how to market and brand yourself in the New Zealand market while still sitting in South Africa. So this is all done from behind your desk in South Africa. And then I feel the most important part of the whole process is pillar 4, which is interview and culture training. Because me being a South African, understanding how South Africans do it, in New Zealand, it's totally opposite. Your interview is 100% different to what a South African interview is. They more focus on your team fit, your culture fit. Your CV has told them that you have the skills to do the job. They want to see, are you going to fit into the team? And you need to understand their culture to understand why they're doing it this way. And we explain the whole culture and the differences in the culture with you. Now, this whole process can, if you're in a highly skilled role and highly sought after, it can take, a month, a few weeks or a month to do it. I've even sat with clients as I'm training them. I tell them to connect with certain people, and the guy starts checking them there and then, and start arranging an interview. While other people, it can take a few months to build up the right databases, the right connections, and to start setting up meetings with people. Now, the one other thing is that we hold your hand all along the way. We are you in this process together. As I said, we meet with you before you leave South Africa. We meet with you in arrival here, just to really help you make this journey much less stressful, much more comfortable for yourselves than just dumping you and saying, come to me when you have a job offer, good luck kind of thing. So yeah, that's our service in a very short, brief nutshell.
It is 6 a.m. over there. Well, 6:30 over there, mate. So we'll forgive you for being short and concise. But just on that, we have discussed this in the previous webinar. We are noticing as an agency that a lot more companies, even though they were using technology during COVID, are going back to the old scenario where they'd really like to shake your hand and meet you face to face. In saying that, we have not, to my knowledge, and even the 2 people that were struggling to get jobs in New Zealand, both in the last week or 10 days, have got jobs. Fantastic. In New Zealand. And clearly I won't mention names. But most people that travel to New Zealand are successful finding work on average within 3 weeks. And I know that because I've been doing this for 30 years. All right. But you need to be prepped, everybody. And this is clearly what Peter does with you, is prep you and get you involved in starting to make those contacts, because there's really no point. Well, a lot of people do this, just hop on a plane, cold, fly to New Zealand, and then start everything when they get there. But if that's the case, you're really losing, in my opinion, 2 or 3 weeks, because, it takes a good month or so to prep yourself properly. Would you not agree with that, Peter? Or?
Oh, definitely. The more you prepare yourself, the longer you take on this process, the more successful you will be when you land on shore. And we're going back to the pre-COVID days where 85 to 90% of our clients have to fly, come onshore, and come for face-to-face interviews. That's the New Zealand culture. They want to meet you. We teach you about the interview process and why, how do you follow the interview process from the reception door right through to the end of the interview. And yeah, the longer you prepare, the more you prepare, the more prepared you come. And our clients, just after COVID, from all the training we did during COVID, 160 people got job offers immediately as the borders opened, not immediately, but the first 2 to 3 months. 160 of our clients receive job offers. And that's because of all the preparation they've done. And before you come to New Zealand, you need to set up your meetings, your what we call networking meetings. You need to set all these up so that when you land, you're prepared already for the first week or two to have meetings set up. We also assist you with recruiters. We've built up relationships with recruiters over the years, but these are only recruiters in specific industries who need migrants. So I'm talking about the high tier engineer roles, the nursing sector, the medical sector. We've got the tradie sector, the diesel mechanics, fitters, electricians, those type of people. We've got recruiters who are interested in foreigners. Education, teachers. So those are highly sought after roles. But all the other sort of more generic roles, those are, we sort of teach you how to connect with recruiters in those fields.
Cool. All right, mate. Is anything else you need to touch on? I'm pretty sure you got appointments starting any minute. Yeah,
I have, yes.
All right. Well, thanks again, Peter. I look forward to chatting to you in the morning, your night time, again with our weekly meeting, and love to the family.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Goodbye, everybody.
Cheers, bye. Okay, so just before, what's the next slide? I've forgotten what the next slide is. Hold on. Okay. When you get your job offer, there is no points required for a work visa, all right? It's based on salary levels, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And then from your work visa, you have potentially 4 pathways to residency. So let's just jump ahead to the salaries. I'll come back to those slides in a second. ANZCO stands for the Australia New Zealand Standard Classification of Your Occupation. And clearly it's used for Australia and New Zealand. And ANZCOs are occupational codes, as it says. And there's about 8,000 of them, maybe even closer to 10,000. But some ANZCOs clearly, a server in a restaurant, i.e. a waiter, will have an ANZCO. But that will be a low ANZCO, which means that if they're going to get residency, they would need to be paid a basic salary of $44.49. There's no way a waiter's going to get $44.49. Hence the fact that waiters don't immigrate. Okay, restaurant managers can, because restaurant managers, for example, are an occupational skill level 3. And that means they only need to earn $29.66, and that's extremely doable. In fact, they should earn more than that. So New Zealand's saying to you, we will allow you to come in, providing you receive a job offer that meets the requirements, i.e. it's with an accredited employer. Well, there's nearly 15,000 of them now, so don't worry too much about that. But the employer is paying you the minimum wage for us to grant you a 3-year work visa. And there are your minimum wages, $29.66 on occupational codes 1 to 3, and on occupational codes 4 to 5, $44.49. Needless to say, very, very few occupations on 4 to 5 would get $44.49. So most of your ANZCOs will be between 1, 2, or 3. Now, I mentioned earlier that if you're going to Australia, you need a qualification. For New Zealand, you don't necessarily need a qualification. You will get assessed on your work experience. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I come to the points test. So I'm assuming you're all taking screenshots of these slides, so you can just have a look at them and go through them at your own leisure. And right, I'll come back to the points. So once you've got your work visa issued, it will generally always be available. It's called an accredited employer's work visa, and it's available for 3 years. It's valid for 3 years, unless, of course, you've got a short-term contract. Anyway, in those 3 years, you potentially have 4 pathways to residency. One comes from high income. There it is on the right-hand side there. You're earning double the minimum wage, or double the median wage required for immigration, which is $59.32. In other words, you're on $123,500 a year. Remembering your work visa is valid for 3 years. After 2 years of earning $123,385.60, you apply for your residency then. Automatic. Okay, you apply for it after 2 years, proving that salary level for 2 years, automatically granted. So on high income, there's no skills assessment required if you have a qualification in general, unless, of course, you needed the skills assessment done for your registration purposes. So that's one way. Another 2 ways are coming back to here, your Green List Tier 1 and Green List Tier 2. Green List there's Green List Tier 1. It started with 76 occupations. They've added another 4 or 5. Please take a screenshot of that. If your occupation is on Green List Tier 1 and the job offer that you receive is on Green List Tier 1, then your pathway to residency is immediate, i.e. anywhere from 4 weeks to 8 weeks. So when you receive the job offer, if you're going Green List Tier 1, you don't need to do a work visa. So you're going to save money. The employer will be told that the visa will take 4 to 8 weeks to process. You can literally go straight to residency. However, the job offer clearly that is advertised that you've applied for, you must meet the requirements. So let's just take engineering, chemical engineer, you've got to have a degree. You've got a diploma or forget it, okay? So it will depend on, like a construction project manager, for example. I did one today. He's got 22 years experience in construction, but he's got certifications all over the place, but no degree. Doesn't mean he won't get in. He'll get in standing on his head, but he cannot use Green List Tier 1. Okay, these were the occupations added on the 15th of December to Green List Tier 1. All right. We've now got Green List Tier 2. Remembering, you get your 3-year work visa. By the way, on your work visas in New Zealand, you still get free healthcare and schooling for your children. Unless, of course, the children are creche age, in other words, under 5 years old, and then you pay for creche. All right. So Green List Tier 2, there are the occupations there. Like I've done a couple of diesel mechanics today. Huge demand. One of the occupations, of course, that has a strong chance of getting a job offer without traveling, one of them. Big demand. And because you're on Green List Tier 2, you've work visas valid 3 years, remember? You're work for the company for 2 years. We lodge residency after 2 years based on the fact that you're on Green List Tier 2 and you've earned a minimum of $29.66 an hour, which is minimum $62,000 odd a year for those 2 years. All right. There were some occupations added to Green List Tier 2 as of March, and as of May, they've now added truck drivers and bus drivers. There was 4 occupations, Liz. I can't remember what they were. Truck drivers, bus drivers, and something else. Liz, if you are listening to me, you might want to put it in the chat room. And those salaries, because a bus driver wasn't earning $29.66, but they brought in a special salary level of $28. They've done, they've been in negotiations with the transportation department, and it seems like the bus companies are happy to pay $28 an hour for the bus drivers or truck drivers, whatever. And then they will have a pathway to residency from that. And I can't, as I say, it was truck drivers and bus drivers. And Liz will remember what else it was if she puts it on the screen for me. Anyway, if she's there. If not, no big deal. I can talk about it to you privately. So, and then this is roles that are exempt from the median wage, where you get a 2-year visa with a 12-month stand down time. So in these occupations, in these occupations, you can need to be paid these figures. And then, of course, if you're over there, and let's say you're a hotel motel manager and you're only earning, $28.18 because it's not $29.66. I guarantee you within a year or so, you'd be on the $29.66. So you would be able to switch it to an accredited employer's work visa with no restrictions. In other words, you wouldn't need to leave after 2 years. But you've got to be careful. If you get one of these jobs at these salaries and you haven't met the minimum wage after 2 years, you will be asked to exit the country for 12 months, which is a little bit tough to do, especially if you're immigrating with a family. And then we, of course, we've got high income, Green List Tier 1, Green List Tier 2, and the Skilled Migrant Category Points Test, which is here. Okay, still in effect. The Minister has been talking about, the Right Honourable Michael Wood has been talking about some changes, but they were supposed to come in June. It's already May, and the general elections are in October. Guys, I could be completely wrong, but I'm not 100% certain he'll bring in drastic immigration changes next month. He might tweak it a little bit here and there, but I can't say I don't think, because I don't know. But I've been in the industry for 30 years. Sorry, just closing my window. I've been in the industry for 30 years. So there, thank you, Liz. Bus driver, truck driver, deckhand, and ship's master. So I would be surprised if he does a complete overhaul of the immigration system in the next 6 weeks, because I think they'll want to be concentrating on trying to win the election. I'll leave the opinions on winning or losing the elections up to everybody else. But the important thing is you need to be in a situation where you understand that SMC, skilled migrant category points test, is still in effect. So take a screenshot of that page. You'll notice you'll get points for your qualifications here on the left-hand side as well. There's your age. Cut-off age is 56. Bonus points for, all the bonus points are on the left-hand side here. If your partner gets employment that meets the requirements, that is something that the Minister's talking about bringing in on the 31st of May, where the spouse is going to get an open work visa, but they also need to work for an accredited employer at $29.66 an hour, which sort of negates the terminology open work visa to me. But he was going to bring the spouses in and just give them visitors visas, which frankly was not tenable. So he has adjusted it slightly, but again, we haven't seen any legislation on this at all, and it's already the 3rd of May. So watch this space. We will keep you informed, and all of you will now be on our mailing list, so you will get mails on any drastic changes or any information, even if they're not drastic, that are changing. Please take us. Oh, shit. Excuse me. Sorry, I didn't mean to say shit. Excuse my language. Then coming back to this page, work experience. Again, it must be related to either your qualifications or the job offer you're getting in order to claim the work experience. And there is bonus points for job offers in the area of absolute skills shortage, or if they're on, the long-term skills shortage list doesn't really exist anymore. Rowan, please remind me to change that tomorrow. I keep forgetting. And then, of course, there's your points for an offer of employment. 50 if the job's in Auckland, and 80 if the job's out of Auckland. So you can see here, you can get close to half your points by getting a job offer outside of Auckland. In fact, it used to be 160 until a month or so ago. And whether it comes down or not, I don't know, because at the moment, the 180 points is really damaging Auckland. It's very hard to get a skilled worker into Auckland at the moment if they need the points test to get residency because of this fact. It used to be 160, but that extra 180 is really damaging Auckland. When you consider that a quarter of your workforce is based in New Zealand's biggest city in Auckland, I think it's something that needs to be looked at. Right. Okay. So New Zealand is all about coming on board. You'll get the starter pack in the first week, but we hand you over to Peter in the first week to 2 weeks as well, straight away. We don't waste any time here. We want to get on to, the documentation collection we can do in the background. Peter is the key player here on starting the job introduction process, the job training process. Liz and Rose will write your CVs and introduce you to the LinkedIn scenarios, because New Zealand is massive on LinkedIn. And then, of course, they'll hand you over to Peter and his diary. You'll be slotting in his diary to go through the job search training processes. You're normally scheduled for 6 sessions at 45 minutes a session. They fluctuate from 15 minutes to 45 minutes. It's really up to you and how you relate and how quickly you take in what we're teaching you and what to do. Some people are slower and some people are faster. Doesn't matter. We will work with you until you find a job offer, whether that takes you 1 month or 1 year. But the job training is important, and it's important you take heed to it. It's always done our night times. Peter, for example, will be starting his appointments about now in New Zealand, and he'll work for sort of 4 or 5 hours, 3 or 4 hours this morning. And then at the moment, he's working his butt off over there. So he'll also work this afternoon as well, which is our morning or late evening. No, excuse me. Anyway, it's getting late. But point is, we hand you over immediately so you can start applying for work. There are 3 reasons an application to New Zealand will fail. You fail the medical, you fail the criminal record check, or you fail to get a job. So what you've got to say to yourself is this: what am I prepared to do in order to get a job? If I don't find a job, Peter keeps mentioning South Africa, and I think and it's only because it's where he's from, etc. And, we forget we've got clients all over the world. I mean, I'm dealing with 4 or 5 from China at the moment. All of them are teachers, ironically enough. And they don't want to come back to Africa. They want to go straight to New Zealand. So they can quite easily. And they are one of the occupations where a lot of them do get jobs without traveling. But you could say to yourself this: draw a line in the sand and say to yourself, right, let's use now. It's the first week in May. I'm going to start this process in May. If I haven't found a job by August, September, then I'm going to go anyway. Okay? I'm not going to necessarily take my family with me initially if I have a family, but I'm going to go anyway. It's only $246 for a visitor's visa, which is in rands, 3,500 odd rand. It's valid for 6 months in general. It allows you to enter New Zealand, find a job, and while you're there, you can convert to the work visa. Because when you get the job offer, the company lodges the job token as per the information on the little voice recording we showed you earlier. That only takes 10 days. Then we lodge your work visa application to that job token, and it takes a maximum 3 weeks. So from the moment you get the offer, you're looking at 5 weeks maximum. So you might be in New Zealand, got the job. You don't have to fly home. In that 5 weeks, find schools for the children, find a car, find a home, etc., because clearly you can't work on a visitor's visa. You've got to wait for the visa to be granted. So you go there, get the job. We do all the work behind the scenes. 4 to 5 weeks later, you can start working. So think about this. If the only reason that you're not going to get in, if you're healthy and don't have any major criminal records, is because I don't find a job, am I prepared to fly there to get one? If I am, I was going to fly there anyway, because once I got the job offer, it was offshore. I was going to go anyway. So what's the difference? The difference is your commitment as an individual and family to making sure this process is successful. Okay? And we will work with you until it does. But if you're not prepared to travel to New Zealand to find a job, then don't start. Seriously, don't start. Some of you might be sitting there with a job offer and saying, well, I didn't have to go there. I mean, we got a greenkeeper the other day, he got a job without going. We've had lots of people surprise us and get jobs without traveling to New Zealand. And on the other hand, we've had teachers have to travel to New Zealand and get jobs. A lot of it depends on you, how you interview, how much work you put in. And I want to end this by saying visitors visa, Willem, will on average take about 3 weeks at the moment. They used to be longer, but they're averaging out at about 3 weeks. And just a point, and I shouldn't really talk about this, but if you look at the New Zealand website at the moment, and they're advertising from skilled migrant category, how long does residency take? It takes up to 48 months. We just got one approved today. We lodged 90 days ago. So, the 48 months is a little extreme. That they should be taking around about a year, but clearly that will clarify as and when things get a little bit smoother and we understand what is going on in the next 3 to 4 months. I just want to end in saying this because it's 9:02. It's late in Africa. It's early morning in New Zealand. But I just want to end in saying this process will work if you commit to it. But it is not free. You're dealing with organizations. You're dealing with companies like us. We charge for our services. You're dealing with airlines. They charge for their flights. You're dealing with accommodation on arrival. They charge for that. You're going to need some transportation like a bus or a train or a car when you get there. You're going to need some money to do this. So if you don't have it, then there's, frankly, ladies and gentlemen, there's just no point in starting it if you don't have the sort of funds that you will need to fund this process. And I tried to work it out today. For example, our fees, you're looking at anywhere between $3,500 to $7,500 or $7,000 US dollars. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but in rands, that's anywhere from 60 to 130,000 rand. And that depends, of course, on the structures of your family and which country we're doing and what type of visas we're processing, et cetera, et cetera. So even if you took out an agent from this, you're still going to need lodgement fees and processing fees and skills assessing fees and English language fees, et cetera. So please be realistic about this. If you are wanting to do this and you've got generous family and friends or a generous bank manager that might lend you some money, fantastic. But if you don't personally have the funds to do this process, then you're just going to send yourself completely negative by trying to start it. And I'm not trying to send you negative. I'm just trying to send you positive. Okay. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, so I just wanted to say thank you again. This is just sort of bit of pre-departure. This is for New Zealand specifically. Stage 1, the first couple of months is documentation gathering and job search training. We should actually combine those first 2 stages now, Ruan. We can do that tomorrow. And then, of course, if you haven't found a job, as I've just said, by month 4 or 5, then I'd go anyway. Okay. Our success rate is virtually 100%, but we do want to make sure that you understand that we become a team. Your family and our family start working together. And I'll leave it at this. All we ever ask you to do is treat us with the respect that we treat you. Simple as that. And as long as you do, we will work with you with a smile on our faces, as happy as Larry. But please, you need to understand that you need to contribute here. You're the one that's going for the interviews. You're the one that's supplying the documentation. You're the one that may need to sit in a line at Home Affairs and get an unabridged birth certificate. You're the one that needs to possibly go and get an extra medical report from your doctor because you have a minor medical condition that we need a specialist report on. So work hand in hand with us. Your family becomes our family. And we take this process extremely seriously. This is your life we're talking about here. You're not a piece of furniture or a metal object. This is your life and the future of it. And we do take that extremely seriously. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for listening to me tonight. Please do take up the advantage of having a consultation with me. It's all free and getting all the information you can so you can make an informed decision. Thank you, Peter, very much, as always, for joining us. Thank you, Liz, again, for joining us. Thank you, Ruan, for organising. And thank you to anybody else that was part of my team that logged on tonight. I wasn't really looking at the screen. And I'm going to end the broadcast now. So please stay safe, everybody, wherever you are in the world. Clearly, if you engage our services, we look forward to working with you. And if you don't, we wish you all the very, very best in your future journey. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening, great morning, and great afternoon. Ciao.